Transmission 100218.
Welcome to Porcelain Peak, a strange and scary podcast covering all things horror and science fiction. Here are your hosts, Anthony, John, and Anthony.
Hello, Porcelain Peeps. Welcome to Season 2, Episode 41. This week, we are doing a redemption of our sci-fi shameful misses. This is our sci-fi shameful misses number 5.
Yeah.
It's crazy how long it's been. Two for you.
This is 41. I don't know. I didn't do a "this is 40" joke, so I felt like this is 41. Yeah.
This is the sum of 41 episodes.
Oh, God.
I'm fucking stoked for this episode though, because with all the camp stuff, I've been missing doing our like redemption or roulette. I mean, I know we did a roulette for camp, but
Camp roulette.
Yeah, I've been missing doing sci-fi, especially. So us getting super back into form with a sci-fi roulette is going to be a blasty blast.
Right, and the last sci-fi we did was not favorable, so
Definitely not.
It's cool to jump into something that I think that we're all going to be fairly favorable on, but we'll see when we get there. So this week we are going to be talking about War of the Worlds, Fifth Element, and Ex Machina. But hey, who's these assholes talking? You don't know them. John, how are you? That's my BDE right there.
You're Brad Dorff.
My Brad Dorff energy, yeah.
I'm doing really well.
Hey,
I've been
John.
watching a lot of sci-fi over the past couple of days because I did rewatch both of your movies and then I watched mine for the first time. Plus, I watched a little something extra based on a recommendation from someone in this very room.
Who the fuck?
In
was,
this
Who the fuck? Who was it?
Happy to hear it, man. Glad. I guess we're all missing sci-fi because that's a ton. Anthony, how are you doing?
I'm creeped out because I have been really getting into UFO shit in the past like week and a half. My girlfriend and I have been going out and just like looking at the stars and stuff late at night on weekends and talking about alien shit. And she was like, "Hey, we should like do some research. We should get really into this." And with all the stuff coming out with like the New York Times just put out an article about stuff that the military has been keeping secret from us about UFOs. So I've been kind of reawakening my childhood fears of being abducted. So that's how I'm doing. Other than that, pretty good. Just trying to...
How about you, Mr. Tone?
That sounds terrifying. I'm great. I have been just working and doing podcast stuff and studying for my BCBA exam.
Just working and jerking.
Not a lot of fun, but I'm excited for these episodes because, I mean, they're sounding great. You get to hear them, you know. It's awesome. And it's just been fun to get this ball rolling, which leads me to Patreon.
Yeah.
We have some shout-outs that we are going to give to our patrons. So first, I'd like to shout out Armando. He's on Instagram at The Good, The Bad, and The Noni. He is a porcelain peep. Thank you so much for donating to us and supporting the pod. Also, Jeff from at Chuck Goes to the Movies. He is a porcelain producer. So thank you very much for selecting that tier and supporting the podcast.
Crazy
And,
boy.
Yeah. Yeah, great guy, though. It's been
Yeah.
fun interacting with him, too. And then lastly this week, we would like to thank Chloe from at Gorgor Girls over on Instagram. She selected the top tier, which is the Porcelain Peak. And so she is also a producer of the show. So thank you, all three of you guys, so much. It's been so weird going on this Patreon journey.
Yeah.
And we appreciate all the support. Again, like we've said previously, even just listening to an episode, it feels great to know that there's people out there that enjoy checking these episodes out. But the donating, going that extra mile is awesome. And we can't thank you enough.
Super humbled.
Yeah, I mean, I've said it before. It's, obviously not necessary, but it is something that is really touching, for me. I mean, as someone who loves to talk and loves people listening to me talk, it's nice that yeah, I know, right? It's nice that I just talk and I go pee. That's all I do. But yeah, I mean, it's incredible. And all of the cool stuff that we now get to do as bonuses, I'm really excited about, because I've said this to some people who are patrons. This show keeps me sane doing this with you guys, and doing all the social media really helps me feel like I'm part of a community that, I would be pretty lonely and with everything going on, I think, if I didn't have the show. So the fact that it can keep other people sane while they're working or on their drives, and it can give them a little laugh, make their days a little stranger and spookier. Strange and scary, that's our thing. Then
One of our things.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. So yeah, thank you from your internet darling.
Thank you from all of Porcelain Peak.
Yeah.
Right, and we just recorded a bonus episode, and that was a list of our top 5 favorite zombie movies each. So if you're not on Patreon, I guess you can't hear it. But if you are on Patreon, then that is there, and it's a goodie.
And like I said, this is maybe a bit of a spoiler for the episode, but we went on for about 45 minutes about how Warm Bodies is the best zombie movie that's ever been made.
It was number one, Warm Bodies. Number 2, Warm Bodies. Number 3, Warm Bodies.
Number 4, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
But yeah, if you are interested in checking out that episode, by the time this one comes out, that one will be live on Patreon. That you would have to, I believe, join the $15 Serve the Main Dish tier in order to get access to that episode. So if you want to check that out, feel free to jump in.
Agreed. But now that we got all that shit out the way,
Shillin'.
let's get into the normal shit of the show and get started with some news. News remix is a news remix. We got news for you, and we don't have right sounds.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Fuck the prime time, bitch.
I'll get us started. So we've talked about it a few times. The Zack Snyder cut is moving forward. I guess they're doing the digital Comic-Con, and I guess it had its own little con. And he went on saying that the Snyder cut will have to be into some reshoots, but that he is not using anything that Joss Whedon shot. So he's getting rid of all the Joss Whedon footage and making it his own thing.
Which is incredible. I mean, good for him. That's cool. It blew me away when I read that because, I mean, I would assume that's a lot of that movie, but it's part of what conflicts with the tone that he was going for, I think. So, I mean, and also, there's been a lot of stuff coming out from cast members and stuff that apparently Joss Whedon was kind of an enormous asshole during that movie. I mean, I don't want to speak too out of turn as someone who's not in the industry and doesn't know, but I've been hearing a lot from, I think it's Ray Fisher, who played Cyborg, talked about Joss Whedon being a dick, which I've heard from other productions he's been on, is that he's very maybe controlling and kind of an asshole. But I love his work, and I was excited to see him work on Justice League, and it just didn't turn out. So, I mean,
I just think that they'd already shot a lot of the principal footage for that movie before Whedon was even involved. And I think that him adding his little like comedic turn to it wasn't what the tone of that movie was intending to make. So trying to repurpose it to make that work just didn't service the movie at all. And I think trying to turn Justice League into the Avengers was an enormous mistake.
yeah.
Oh, I totally agree. I also am concerned because what's going on with Ezra Miller? They're saying that he's got some controversy surrounding him.
He strangled a fan.
What do you mean?
There's a video of him. A fan came to like take a picture with him or get an autograph, and he flipped the fuck out and like choked her out
Oh my god!
on video. Yeah, so that's one thing.
Well,
So-
and then there's also like him like being part of like a weird sex compound.
Yeah, so people are kind of blown away that he is involved at all anymore, and that the plans for a Flash movie involving him are still going forward, I guess. I've heard people talking recently about how is Ezra Miller not getting more, especially with how big cancel culture is right now.
Yeah.
It kind of blows me away that, and again, don't want to speak too out of turn as somebody who's not part of the industry, but again, that is kind of our MO. So yeah, I mean, I like Ezra Miller, but I really did not care for any of the movies that he was the Flash in, and I did not care for the movies that he was in Fantastic Beasts in. So really, I could be okay with Ezra Miller getting canceled.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I mean, I have actually never seen Justice League because I just got so bored with the DC franchise that I was just over it by the time I got to it. Although Wonder Woman was good. Mm. Even the ending of that, I was like, whatever, this is the same shit now. You guys blew it. But
If you haven't checked out Birds of Prey, I would suggest that.
Yeah, I've heard that.
It's a completely different direction. Even Aquaman, Aquaman's pretty
James
solid.
Wan.
It's pretty solid.
And I heard
then
Shazam
obviously-
was good.
Yeah, Shazam was
Shazam's great. Yeah, it's
So-
a lot of fun.
But yeah, by the time I was watching all those hadn't come out yet. And so I was just over it, and I never watched Justice League because I just thought that it was garbage, and from what I heard, it is.
Yeah.
So but this I want to check out. I think it's really cool what they're doing. They're also talking about maybe making it a miniseries for HBO Max instead of just a 4-hour movie. Either way, it's going to be the
I
same
think at
shit.
Comic-Con they finally confirmed that it is going to be a movie, not a miniseries.
Oh, okay.
So, but it is going to be like 4 hours long.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and that the whole Comic-Con thing, I mean, wasn't intended to be in my news, but now that we're on the topic, kind of flopped because
Yeah.
they did nothing to promote it. I heard about it from one of you guys in an offhand comment that it even existed, and it had already started. And I guess it's all over Reddit. People were just like, yeah, the reason why they're only getting 15,000 views on these videos is because they didn't fucking tell anybody.
yeah, I didn't know until I saw it trending on Twitter that they were going to be doing it that weekend. And I'm like, usually the hype for Comic-Con goes way in advance.
Like when the last Comic-Con ends.
And really, we didn't get a ton of crazy news unless maybe you're a Star Trek fan and care that they're making a Star Trek cartoon now. But outside of that, I mean, we basically were just told New Mutants is staying where it is, and
Yeah.
here's some other stuff that's getting pushed back, which kind of segues into your news, I guess, if you want to talk about Comic-Con at large. I mean, yeah, it flopped, and I didn't really pay attention to much except what I felt was pertinent to the show.
Yeah.
Like release dates and things like that. But I think it's a cool idea. And I really like the idea that everybody could have gone to Comic-Con sort of digitally if they had played it up as that and
Yeah.
done Comic-Con from home as like a big deal and really spent months on it, like getting people on board. It would have been cool.
Yeah.
But I just was like, oh, whatever. If some news slips my way, like I'll bring it to the show.
But yeah, you did mention in a beautiful segue.
Thank you so
that
much.
there are some things that are getting reshuffled as per usual of 2020. Everything is getting shuffled around and moved. Apparently, it looks like we won't be getting Peninsula here, which is already playing in other places and is doing fairly well.
$21 million in Korea since July 15th.
Yeah, which is great, especially considering they're also still dealing with the virus in one way or another. But the fact that it's being pushed back to the end of August here, which could be wishful thinking, is pretty ridiculous. Because I mean, at this point, it's something where I would consider, but I don't think that I would go to the movies. Like if it came to a drive-in, I'm there. See you later. Yeah, because I'm excited to see what they're able to accomplish with making a sequel to Train to Busan. But I'm not willing to risk my health or my family's health to go see a movie.
You're not going to risk turning your life into a Train to Busan situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I ain't fucking going to the movies right now. I don't care
Yeah.
what's playing.
Yeah, and then we're in a similar situation with Tenet. The rest of the world is getting Tenet in August.
I think
And
it's like August 26th is when they're supposed to start in. I got the list right here. And this is going to be important because we do actually have quite a few friends of the pod who are in the UK/Australia. So this actually is exciting for you guys. Sucks for us, you motherfuckers. The studio announced that end of August, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, Japan, Korea, Russia, and the United Kingdom are getting it. And we are not until September 3rd, potentially.
If that.
If that early. Potentially end of September, potentially not even then because we can't get our shit together here in the good old US of A.
Yeah, so as of right now, we're currently on the antebellum watch as far as movies that relate to us that are supposed to be slated for a very soon theater release. So if that comes in August, I'd probably be kind of shocked. I know that you and I both got notifications yesterday about Regal saying, "Oh, buy tickets to something or something like that." And
They said they were reopening on the 23rd or 26th. And I was like,
yeah, it's like my ass ain't gonna be there.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think for the safety and continued life of this podcast, we should all play it better safe than sorry. It's shitty because, especially with something like Tenet, like I want a really high concept sci-fi movie to come out. Like it's been so long since I've seen one of those that I'm bummed, and I'm bummed especially because I mean that's like a nightmare for us. Is that our thing is like our thing of going to the movies, our favorite pastime is now going to be enjoyed by the rest of the world before we get it, which is typically the other way around, right?
Yeah.
which I guess now you guys get to enjoy that. So whatever. But I mean, that's going to be obviously a question of things like piracy maybe skyrocketing because of a release situation like that.
There's a ton of people out there that don't give a shit about experiencing it how it's supposed to be experienced like we do, and they're going to pirate that shit for sure.
What I was going to say is I was telling John when we were playing D&D recently that worst case scenario, if they made Tenet available like in 4K on streaming, then I would be okay with us all getting together here, like with your big TV and watching it. But that would be absolute worst case scenario if we couldn't catch that in a movie theater.
And that's the least I would do.
Yeah, we would do it big. But yeah, so my news to finish us off is pretty small, but it was a big deal for me. I was super excited about it. A24, for people who don't know already, has a really cool little shop. And one of the neatest things that they have in their shop is their screenplay books. So they have these really nice hardcover screenplays for things like The Witch. I believe they have one for Ex Machina.
I want to say that everything that's not the one that just came out is already sold out.
It's sold out, yeah. So one for Hereditary, I just saw last night that there's one for Hereditary coming out. And the thing that got me super excited about this, beyond it being the screenplay for Hereditary, which is one of my favorite horror movies now at this point, is that it's going to have additional writing from Ari Aster, where he breaks down his like his artistic process behind some of the scenes in the movie.
Dude.
And it's going to have it has an introduction from Bong Joon-ho.
Yeah.
Which is super cool. So I went on the A24 website today and bought it. It's about $60 for anybody who's interested, and I think it's well worth it. I'm very stoked to look through it. It's gorgeous. It has
You have to bring that over.
Yeah.
I'm on my phone right now hovering over the...
That's why I bought it, is because I saw that everything else was sold out on there. So, I mean, honestly, I might throw this up on the Instagram story today for anybody who's interested, because obviously by the time they hear this news, this might not be something that they can buy anymore. So,
old news.
Yeah. So, if it's still available, check it out. If not, ask me. I'll send you some pictures.
I'm very excited to see that. I cannot wait for you to bring that over. We're going to be doing it. Hopefully you actually bring that over like you never did with that fucking hot sauce.
Oh, that's true, yeah. I've been enjoying the shit out of that hot sauce, too.
My mouth is still bland as fuck, bro.
The blandest mouth.
My butthole is still tight.
Oh, my God. So that is the end of news. If you want more news, then head over to Twitter, where you can find even more news that we weren't able to squeeze into the show, because we got to get these episodes short so that they're nice and sweet for the listeners.
But yeah, so check it out on Twitter. Ashley the Intern, constantly hitting us with a barrage of news, scouring the bloody disgustings of the world in order to bring us up-to-date things that we can talk to you about that hopefully aren't too out of date by the time you get this episode.
No promises.
So that concludes old news as we move into trivia. John?
Trivia!
Imposter! Trivia!
Here's how we play. I ask a question. If you get it right, Steve lives.
Please don't do this.
Come on, it'll be fun.
Please.
It's an easy category.
Please.
Movie trivia. Or even give you a warm-up question.
Don't do this, I can't.
Name the killer in House.
I just got hit in the face with just a bouquet of roses just now.
And a rotten tomato.
Also, that's the first time I've ever yelled it.
I tried it, and then I got halfway through, and it made me very uncomfortable. I didn't like doing it, so I backed off.
Since Anthony won last week, we
Hell yeah,
are
I
letting
did.
him select the game, and he decided on the horror trivia game, Horror Trivia.
I really want to throw it
every week.
I want to throw you guys a curveball this week.
But in addition, we also have some Patreon trivia questions that were sent to us from Jeff at Chuck Goes to the Movies.
Yeah.
So here are these questions. These are not going to go into the point system of our regular round, but we are going to go ahead and do them anyway. So here's the question. How many people associated with the filming of The Exorcist died during production?
I want to say it was like 3. It could be more.
I'm going to go 2.
I just watched this episode of that cursed film thing on films thing on Shudder, so I wish I knew. I'm gonna guess 2 as well.
All right, what's the answer?
The answer is 9 people.
Wow.
Shit.
Holy fuck.
I was not even remotely aware that it was that many people. Jesus.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I said 3, and I thought that it could have been more, but I didn't think 9. Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ.
I mean, I guess if we're talking about it, it should be Pazuzu instead of Jesus Christ that we're talking about. But
Power of Christ compels you.
All right. So then the second question from @ChuckGoesToTheMovies is, how much screen time does Freddy Krueger get in A Nightmare on Elm Street, the original one?
I'm gonna say it's like 8 minutes.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm going to go 15.
I'm going to guess even lower, and I'm going to say 5. He's in it for, 6 minutes. A total of 6 minutes.
All
And
right.
he's like 7 minutes in hell with Freddy.
7-minute abs.
All right.
Yeah, so you said 6, I said 8.
Yes, and I said if it ain't.
Let's find this answer.
What is it?
It's a tie. 7 minutes.
So right
The
between
answer is
between-
7 minutes. So right between
I
what
fucking
John
should
and
have
I
gone with
said.
7 minutes in hell. God damn it.
Yeah, that's crazy. Again, I mean, he picked questions that I think he probably thought would blow our minds, because that
Yeah.
blows my mind.
Yeah, I like I said, I love those questions, and I think, like I said, going to Patreon with those. I mean, I hate double plugging, but I do think that like having that as an opportunity, like for us to get those questions, I think is something super cool, and we'll have to hit up our other new Patreon producer for some questions as well.
Yeah, that's exciting, and I like those, and I'm excited to see what he brings to the table next month.
Are
But
you
now,
excited? You guys excited?
are we getting excited? I'm very excited. John, wasn't double plugging the name of your sex tape? Woo! That's what I'll bring to the table.
Thrasher Brasher in.
Okay, so Anthony, you have a 2-peak streak
2
currently.
streak.
All right, see if you can
I'm
hold
streaking,
it.
bro.
I, Tone, will read to John, and John's gonna read to Anthony, and Anthony's gonna read back to me. Sorry, everybody listening, for that accent, but it's happening. Here we go. John, this 2010 movie involved unwilling participants in a Nazi doctor's sadistic experiments.
Is that going to be The Human Centipede?
Yes, that is going to be the Human Centipede. What's
Strange.
the subtitle, John?
Is it the first chapter?
First sequence.
First sequence.
The reason I know that so well is because I literally 2 days ago watched Full Sequence, the second Human Centipede movie. I had never, for whatever reason, the other
Full sequence, the third one?
I think it's Final
sequence is the third one. So I
Who
had not
knows?
seen any of the sequels. I had seen the original Human Centipede and actually thought it was pretty cool, like back in the day. And so I was like, oh, I'll watch the second one because everybody says it's so fucked up and crazy. And honestly, it was just pretty bad. But there were parts of it that I was surprised by that I was actually like, oh, this is pretty interesting. Has a very Eraserhead feel to it, which is why I decided to check it out. But yeah, weird coincidence that would come up.
That is weird, but
Not a recommendation. Does not go on my watch list.
that puts John on the board.
Yeah.
On the board.
Boards.
Board.
My
boards. All right, Anthony. What movie stars professional wrestler Roddy Piper as a drifter who discovers a box of special sunglasses?
Stay woke because it's They Live.
It is indeed.
Yeah.
Live. I'm not even looking at the card.
That is Hell Comes to Frogtown, baby.
Roddy Piper. Chew ass and spit bubble gum.
Nailed it.
Former Counselor Tone. What 2012 slasher film is a story about an annual ritual sacrifice to appease the Ancient Ones?
Cabin in the Woods.
You are correct, sir. It's Cabin in the Woods.
That scared me for a second. All right. Well, at the end of round 1, we are all on the board.
Push me on the board. Push me on the board.
Hey. One thing about living in Santa Carla, I never could stomach all the damn vampires. John, what movie is that from? You want me to read it like Mickey Mouse? Would that help?
That was get him hard.
Oh, one thing about living in Santa Clara I never could stomach, John, is all the damn vampires. One thing. Living in Santa Clara. That was my best Kermit.
So we just talked about this
T. Frog.
like 2 episodes.
Yep.
Because of Joel Schumacher.
Yeah, so you know what it is. That you're just having a brain fart.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chalk it up to brain damage, bro.
Is it The Lost Boys?
Yes!
God.
Holy
Fucking damn
shit,
it,
dude.
Jesus.
At least you got it after all that. For frog's sake.
Fucking That hurt.
That was sad to watch.
Yes, you guys didn't have to hear that pause, but it was a minute.
But yeah, like I said, I 100% knew it. I've seen it 100 times. Just sometimes that happens.
Yeah, especially when you're under pressure.
Under pressure.
Move on.
Skidly boop. Harry Potter's Daniel Radcliffe starred in this 2012 film about a vengeful ghost.
The Woman in Black.
It is indeed The Woman in Black. Don't have to look at the card.
Never saw it.
It's worth a watch.
He'll always be Harry Potter to me. He'll always be Swiss Army Man to me. Tone. Which 1958 creature feature starred Steve McQueen in his first role?
I don't know. Creature from the Black Lagoon.
It was The Blob.
Ah,
Did you just call me Blob?
bitch. All right, at the end of round 2, John and Anthony have 2, and I only got the 1. Here we go. Jiggity. In 2009 film Paranormal Activity, what objects do the spirits use to communicate with the living?
I want to say it's lights.
That is incorrect, sir. It's a Ouija board.
Ouija. What 2014 film is based on a Hasbro board game?
That's going to be Ouija.
It is Ouija.
Ouija.
Like an uncanny.
That's strange. Oh, I just said Ouija board. You just said it.
I don't understand.
Remember that one time we used a Ouija board? If you want to hear that story, patreon.com/porcelainpeak.
That's actually a really good bonus episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just dawned on me. Tone.
Yes.
What European director of the classic 1977 film Suspiria is also known as the Italian Hitchcock?
Argento.
Yeah, but what's the first name?
Dario.
Yep. Dario.
Yep, Dario Argento. Good job.
All right. So that puts you in the lead, Anthony.
Fuck yeah, bro.
And John and I at 2 each.
Yep.
Here we
Keeping
go
this
with
crown.
the next one. John. Real quick. This is a spoiler for this movie, just in case.
Okay.
At the end of the 2001 film, The Others, what did the mother, Grace, figure out about herself and her children?
It's the reason why I haven't seen this movie. They're already dead, and that the people who were there are actually alive.
Yes.
Really good twist. Really sad that for almost anyone I've talked to, that's been spoiled for them.
Yeah.
So obviously not a very good job keeping that under wraps for anybody. But I just always think, I am your daughter.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's Michael Jackson from the scary movies.
Michael Jackson from the scary movies.
What 2009 film followed a family who adopted a girl named Esther who wasn't what she seemed?
Is that The Orphan?
It is The Orphan.
I saw a thing and it was like children in horror movies and it had a picture of her and I was like, well, if you know that, that's a very false statement.
That's with Vera Farmiga, who would go on to do the Conjuring movies. And Bates Motel, for anybody who's a fan. Yeah, so I haven't seen that movie either because I know the twist and don't feel like I need to. But
It's not good.
Tone, Damien Thorne is the name of the possessed child in what 1976 movie?
The Omen.
Oh man, it's The Omen. Yeah.
It's The Omen.
It's The Omen. Yeah, you're correct. Damien, it's all for you.
Damien. 3 for the good guys and 4 for Anthony. As we move into round 5. John, what is the name of the main character who studies witchcraft in the TV show Buffy the Vampire Slayer? This is asking for a first and last name.
I don't have that for sure because I have seen like an episode of Buffy.
Wow.
Give him a John face.
I don't know what a John
Like
face.
this.
I'm gonna say it's Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
It's Willow. It's Allison Hannigan's character.
That's right.
I've seen Buffy.
I mean, I would accept Willow because who the fucking you don't even know Buffy's last name.
Yeah. What's her last name?
Buffy's?
No, I
Summers?
know Buffy's is Summers. I'm asking for Willow.
Rosenberg.
Rosenberg.
Willow Rosenberg.
Great character. Really nice arc. You should fix that mistake you've made by not having seen Buffy.
Not a huge fan. I tried, and
You-
it's in that True Bloodish category for me, where it's just too over the top. I guess I could try.
I'm
Again.
not going to argue with you about this, John.
I
But I'll
enjoyed.
let the listeners give you shit about it.
I enjoyed that one episode we watched last year for Terror Tales.
Yeah, it's a good one. Hit me.
What 2016 movie finds a group of thieves trapped inside a house they are trying to rob and discover the owner is not just a blind, helpless victim?
Oh, come on, man.
Don't breathe.
It's Don't Breathe.
I know.
I fucking know it's Don't Breathe.
He's going to win again. You officially can't win.
Yeah, I'm out.
I'm still in the running if I get this.
Okay. All right. Okay. Tone. What body part was the creature after in the movie Jeepers Creepers?
Eyes.
Yeah, he's after them peepers.
Right?
Eyes. Yeah, you
okay.
got it.
Justin Long's eyes. Sweet. At the end of the 5th round, John has 3, Anthony's got 5, and I've got 4.
Yes.
Correct.
We're going to go ahead and do yours anyway, John. Michael Myers' mask is supposedly based on what famous actor?
That would be William P. Shatner.
William Power Tools Shatner is correct. Hey, not a bad week, though.
Yeah.
Good job.
Could have been worse. Could have been worse.
Could have been worse.
Could have been real worse if I'd missed that second one.
For the win,
Let's see
Anthony.
what Anthony. This one's a toughie, actually.
Bum bum.
When a Japanese high school student attempts to escape the battle royale, what method of control does Takeshi Kitano demonstrate?
I don't know. Is it mind control?
It is not mind control.
It seems like a very vague question.
It is the explosion of a detonating collar.
That's okay. Never seen the movie, but that would have just been like a wild guess because I feel like that's a trope now. I don't know if that movie started it, but
Oh, shit. This means pressure's on right now?
Yeah, pressure is on.
For a tie.
what is the name of the horror film magazine that debuted in 1979 and is returning to print in 2018?
Fangoria.
Correct. It's Fangoria.
All right, hand me a card. Let's get into that tiebreaker round. Mr. Tone, Mr. Anthony,
Hi.
you will be allowed to answer once I have read the complete question and then say done. What astrological event occurs during the 2017 movie Veronica that causes the character to invoke harmful spirits? Done.
Earthquake.
It is neither of those things. It is a solar eclipse. Let's move on to the next question.
Of the
Cool.
heart, or?
I'm sweating.
Your second tiebreaker question. What 2006 horror film about an alien plague was directed by Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn? Go.
Slither.
It is indeed Slither for the win.
Oh, did you know it?
Yeah. I just wasn't as quick on the draw. I had a John moment.
You had a John moment in the episode where John had the ultimate John.
I didn't have a complete John meltdown. Your brain literally melted while I was watching.
All right. That signals the defeat of Anthony's peak streak, crowning me the winner this week. Super excited
You're
to
crowning
be
something.
super excited to be back on top. That's going to end it for trivia. If you enjoyed that trivia and that news, then please hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on any of these episodes. In addition, you can check us out on YouTube, where we're going to be doing trivia videos once a month of just the trivia segments, and where we have full episodes if you want to check those out as well, and where we have little mini shorts that we're going to be working on. There's one on there now. There's a couple on Instagram where they're just kind of goofy videos related to the episodes. That being said, we'll go ahead and get started with our main discussion of our Sci-Fi Redemption 5.
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realize? Ignorance is bliss.
As I mentioned earlier, the 3 movies that we watched were War of the Worlds for me, Ex Machina for John, and The Fifth Element for Anthony. So I think that yours is going to have the most controversy, Anthony, between
Yeah.
The Fifth Element. You watched Ex Machina. I feel like that's probably going to be a really good, easygoing conversation. And I feel like mine might be kind of middling. So I say we start with you, John.
So we'll start with good.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I watched Ex Machina, which I think basically completes my watch of all of the things Alex Garland's been a part of up to this point.
Unless you
Pretty
count
darn
The
close.
Beach.
That's true. I have not seen that,
But I think he likes to not count The Beach.
yeah.
You're at that point now where you're like, well, can I get a hold of Alex Garland's chewing gum, some of his toilet tissue, something else he's been involved with?
His
I just
Garland.
I just want some of his DNA.
All right.
Whoa.
We'll go ahead and pass that on to him.
This movie was fucking incredible. I don't have to beat around the bush about it. I mean, it's everything that I loved about Annihilation and about Devs. It's just, I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a different path, just because we do have kind of like that like weird godlike figure with Oscar Isaac's character, but this one is much less likable on purpose. It's meant to be somebody that you were kind of stuck pointing the finger at the entire time. And
In this or in Devs?
in this. So because
Oh, see, I didn't feel like that. I didn't dislike him.
so
He's weird and eccentric.
I felt like he's not nearly as likable as Forrest in Devs. Forrest in Devs is incredibly charismatic.
I
Yeah,
feel like
that's
he's a
fair.
lot more just like a. I mean, it may be a face he's putting on in the movie. It seems like maybe, but he's a lot more just charming, I think, than the Forrest character was. Like just in terms of, he's just he's kind of a weird goofball and also a drunk. And yeah, he's an interesting character. I agree with Anthony that I like don't necessarily dislike him in the movie, but I do think the intention is for you to be kind of distrustful of that character.
Yeah.
like, from the outset.
Yeah, I'm not saying I hated that character.
Right.
I felt like it, like I said, it had very similar shades to a character like Forrest, but I felt like Forrest was a more
very
likable
similar.
character from
like
the
he had
audience
evolved that
perspective.
idea like since doing Ex Machina.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Well, see, the thing I like more about what's his name in the movie, Oscar Isaacs?
Mark
Mark?
Zuckerberg.
Anyway, his character knows what's going on. He's privy to all of it, where Forrest kind of had that out. And so you're like, well, if you're the head of this operation, I feel like you should know more. And Oscar Isaac knew fucking everything. And then
Yeah.
some. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so do we want to do like a very quick rundown for anybody who hasn't seen this of what this movie is?
Yeah, I'll give the basics and try to avoid spoiling the ending because the ending is incredible.
Yeah.
But essentially, Domhnall Gleeson's character wins a contest and is shipped to a remote island in order to study with Oscar Isaacs, who is the owner of the company that he works for, who has this crazy thing that he wants to show him. And basically, he's going to be doing a Turing test of an AI that is like a fully like automated person played by
Alicia Vikander.
Alicia Vikander, and it just kind of goes shit crazy from there. Basically, just him getting drunk with Oscar Isaac's character, and then spending time, building a relationship with this AI named Ava, and it goes in crazy directions. It's all of the typical hallmarks of anything Garland is attracted to, which is beautiful visuals, excellent sci-fi property, and then just very, very intense like character work and dialogue and things that don't hold the hands of the people who are watching them. So if you are the kind of person who's into tech or anything like that, you will definitely have a lean towards this movie. But this one I feel like is definitely not quite as far out-reaching as something like Devs. There is a little more explained during the process, just based on the conversation of basically Oscar Isaac's kind of talking down to Gleeson. So I think that because of that, there is a little more that you can pick up from just watching it rather than having to have written a thesis on determinism in order to fucking understand Devs.
Well, and that's what I had said to Tone before you showed up, was that rewatching Ex Machina after having seen so much more, like seeing Annihilation and seeing, I almost called it Deus, seeing Devs, this is a lot more subdued. It's a lot more smaller scale, which I mean, it pulls off really well with like you said, a gorgeous set piece of his house in the middle of nowhere. It has like its Jurassic Park type intro onto this island or whatever, and he has this cool underground setup that feels fleshed out, feels like something that would exist, and everything in this movie does a remarkable job of feeling like something that would actually exist. I mean, the effects on Alicia Vikander as the AI, as Ava, are incredible.
Yeah.
And they made a lot of smart choices, which I feel like Alex Garland likes to do, which is mixing that practical person standing there with bits of being able to see her internally. It's amazing. Something that I don't know if you know, but something that I learned from VFX Artists React, the Corridor channel on YouTube, is that the absolute most difficult visual effect moment in that movie for them to do was when Ava is showing Donald Gleason's character a drawing that she did, and she's holding it out in front of him. And I may have told you this before, but when people hold things, like when you hold something out like that, you don't stand perfectly still. You don't.
Yeah, your body
moves. So they had to go in and they had to basically CG all of these parts and everything to like slightly move like a person to subconsciously make you start to slip into that idea of like she's a person.
Yeah.
So they had to go in and add, or they had to like, I guess freeze her to make her seem like a robot. So they had to go in and like stabilize everything and something like that. But like it was literally just her holding that paper was like the most difficult VFX trick that they had to do.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's just the subtleties of things like that with Garland and his team. Because I mean, at this point, he's worked with the same 3 people to do both of his movies and to do Devs. Just the little tiny details that they focus on, which make them so impenetrable as films. Like I mean, like I said, it was absolutely gorgeous, very well acted. I had an excellent time with it. I was laying in bed watching it, and then like about 20 minutes in, I had to like sit up in bed, like full back against the wall, like, you know, crisscross applesauce, just like leaning down on my hand, like just soaking it all in.
I like this word picture you're painting. Did you pull out like a set of binoculars? Like
I'm
like
not
at the
that far
opera,
from my
like at the
TV.
opera, you have your little glasses that you put on. Yeah.
Back to what you were saying about how small this is compared to his other 2 projects. I really liked that comparison where you get this small piece. It's very simple. Everything in this movie is very simple except the ideas, and that's where this movie is massive with these complex ideas. And they do it. They give you some visual storytelling, which is really great with the black and white stuff and these kind of dream sequences. I don't know, or thought sequences in a way. And I really like that next to each other. You know what I mean? Where it's small scale, and that's all you need. But you present the big ideas, and you present this big idea in a way that's easy to follow. At least, I mean, I thought so. You know what I mean?
I think so.
And I think that it's just a good movie. I originally saw it and was pretty lukewarm on it. Having rewatched it now for this, I thought it was really good. Yeah, it's good. And it builds so much tension because you know something's coming the whole time, but you have no idea what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you're kind of in the dark because you're coming from Donald Gleason's character's perspective, and you know that there's something else. You know that Oscar Isaac's character probably knows more about what's going on, or should, like you said, should know more about what's going on, and you have no idea who has what intentions the whole time. It's definitely pretty good about like, yeah, and then when it does get to that end, which I know you said you didn't want to spoil, but when it does get to that end, it's pretty brutal. It's pretty intense and distressing.
Very.
I was a little bit confused during this watch because you had said that the girl from Devs was the robot. Mm-hmm. I guess we'll have to talk about spoilers at some point. So that's a warning. This is a spoiler warning.
Yeah.
And so I was watching Ava, and I was like, dude, that does not look like her at all. And then she pops up later, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, maybe he's mixed up, or maybe I'm mixed up. Somebody's mixed up, because that's not the right person.
Isn't she the one that dances with him?
Yeah.
In
Yeah.
that unforgettable dance scene.
Is there anything about this movie that you disliked?
No.
Okay.
Just flat out
Easy enough.
no.
All right.
Right. Then how did you feel about that dance sequence?
I thought that it was fun as a scene to shoot, I'm sure. But I felt like it managed to make that goofy-ass dance scene super fucking tense. Because Gleason's character is like, what the fuck? Like I know that he's already been told, like, hey, don't trust this guy. He's an asshole. The fact that he's like being put in this juxtaposition between like, this guy's an asshole and this guy is drunk dancing with who he thinks is a real woman. Like I said, I don't think that it was a bad scene. I thought that it was fun in the fact that like it was very well choreographed, but then also like that it still managed to keep ratcheting the tension, and that's impressive.
Did you ever think at any point that she was an android or an AI? What do you call these? Androids? Robots?
I thought
Cybernetic organisms.
I thought from the moment she walked into his room that she was.
Did you at any point think that Dommel was, or that Oscar Isaacs was?
No.
I like that I didn't remember that he was like, wait,
He like
am
cuts
I?
himself open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like, oh fuck, maybe I'm
Brittany
not
was
real.
watching it with me and she was like, nope.
Yeah, it's cringy. I hate stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like for how much gore I see, like when it's people, when it's a slow scene of somebody cutting a wrist or something, I can't do it.
Yeah.
It's too much.
I thought that it was really interesting that he has Dommel come to run this, was it like the Turing test?
Yeah.
And in turn, he successfully runs a Turing test with that other character.
Yeah.
And doesn't realize that she's an AI. And
Yeah.
so she passes.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's because she can't speak or what.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, and that's the cool part of like what the reveal. Basically, at the end of the day, it's like the test passed. It just didn't pass in the way that they expected that it would pass.
Yeah.
Did you think that she was going to do what she did at the end?
I was undecided because I figured that, because in most movies, they make the AI to be the bad guy. And I assumed that there was going to be some type of turn or shade of that direction. I just didn't know that well into spoiler territory now, after she kills Oscar Isaac's character, that she was then going to turn around, full-blown get dressed up like a human, and then leave Gleason there, locked to die.
And that's where my biggest question with this movie comes in, is why wasn't the helicopter pilot like, who the fuck are you? And where's this guy I came to pick up?
He's probably like a
So-
no questions asked type.
It's either that,
Yeah.
do we ever see him after he's standing out in front of the helicopter?
Who?
The helicopter driver.
Oh shit, he's an android.
What if he's dead? What if she just walked up and was just like, nope,
Maybe.
and then drove the helicopter? She's a fucking AI.
Yeah.
I guarantee it wouldn't be more than a couple of seconds for an AI to be like, oh yeah, this is how you
No,
do that.
you're right, Tone. The whole movie fucking it falls apart now.
I really like the stab scene because the way that the knife goes in,
It's so slow.
there's no
just
hesitation
calculated,
because they
just-
don't have to. They
just-
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
to me, it
like
looks like
butter.
a knife through butter. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah, I mean, overall, would you watch it again?
Absolutely.
Do you think that it should be part of the sci-fi lexicon?
Absolutely.
All right, out of 5 wetware brains, what do you give this bad boy?
I give it 5 wetware brains. It was fucking...
Just as we predicted
Masterful.
before you got here.
Oh, yeah. There was no way... I mean, at this point, I am in love with everything that I've seen that he's done. I wouldn't change a single second of any
So
of them.
if Alex Garland wants to send any used condoms John's way, his address is.
He did say he wants his DNA. All right, so then I'm going to go ahead and do mine because if we're going to argue about yours, then I just want to go ahead and save that so we end on a sour note. So I watched the 2009, 6?
I think it's
I don't know,
like 5 or 6.
Spielberg,
It's 5 or 6.
Cruise, War of the Worlds, and I'm glad I did.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it was very entertaining. Tom Cruise, I mean, people hate on the guy, but he's good.
I think he's great in this movie.
And
Yes.
he's an action star. And I feel like we don't have a lot of modern day action stars like him, and he's still doing it. And he's been doing it, which is fucking nuts. And he gets better and better all the time. We watched a video the other day about him breaking his leg or his foot
yeah.
and keeping going. He's crazy. But this movie, for anyone who doesn't know, is about aliens that shoot down in lightning bolts and then try to take over the world.
And giant tripods based on the old book.
Yeah, which I was like, all right, that's fine. I love the way that this movie is shot. There are takes that are long. Like, we're talking a couple minutes of him running, bobbing, and weaving and going through town when the attack first starts. Similar to what you were doing, I was in bed and I sat up. I was like, this is fucking dope, dude. And I loved it. I loved every second of that scene and that first takeover scene. This movie does a really good job, too, of keeping the tension. So a lot of times in these invasion movies, you get some downtime. This movie barely has any. There's a little bit when they get into that basement with Tim Robbins, but even that is short, and then they start building up again.
Yeah, well, and part of the reason of that is because it's double tension. It's not only the tension of the invasion, it's also the tension of the family struggles that Tom Cruise's character is going through with his children.
He gets absolutely shit on in this movie, like over and over again
Just
about how shitty a
constantly
dad he
getting
is. Yeah.
dunked on by his son.
And I hadn't seen this movie in years, and so I rewatched it today because we were going to be doing this episode. And yeah, I completely agree with everything you were saying. I mean, the way this movie, the only complaint I have, which is a general Spielberg complaint when it comes to the way that his movies look, is that his lighting is always way overblown. I feel like most scenes, like with light coming through windows or sunlight, it looks like they're in heaven or whatever. Like, it's always way too bright and overblown, and that's a Spielberg thing on a lot of his movies that I don't particularly care for, but that's a personal thing. Outside of that, yeah, I mean, this movie is shot incredibly with those, again, trademark Spielberg long takes that he likes to do. And Tom Cruise, yeah, I mean, outside of being an action star, he is really good in this movie. I feel for his character.
I don't love the relationship with the son. It's there, and they try to build it, but it just
forced.
never gets there. Yeah, agreed.
I don't like Justin Chatwin. I don't think anybody does anymore. But
Yeah, I mean, I think
Dragon Ball.
Yeah, I think Dragon Ball Evolution fucking ruined him forever. I did want to ask you a couple of questions. I wanted to see, how do you feel like the movie has aged based on the time frame that it came out in?
Well,
Like,
from
looking
what I
at, like,
heard is that
effects
it
and
was a slight response to 9/11, similar to how Godzilla was a response to the attacks on Hiroshima, right?
Yeah.
And so they reference that a little bit. I don't feel like that ever really gets fleshed out.
Dakota Fanning's character at one point is like, "Is it the terrorists?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was probably my biggest problem with this movie, honestly. But
she's pretty rough.
I think it still holds up. I mean, the graphics are fine. It's very practical still.
Yes.
And only from a distance are they computerized, and that works. And I think Spielberg did what he could to keep it grounded. There is one part when he walks out of the basement and everything's all covered in the red vine shit, and you can tell that it's a set. Like, it looks like he's walking through a Tim Burton set, actually.
Yeah.
I was like, what, did Tim Burton do this part? But other than that, I would say it holds up pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the editing room and the color grading. I think that the way that they use color in this movie is very sparing. It's also it's almost grayscale in some scenes. And I think that as we've seen with things like the black and white version of The Mist, like having that black and white or that close to black and white, very little undersaturated color blends old style computer animated graphics very well.
Yeah.
It makes things look more like reach out and touchable. Another question that I had for you was, what do you think of the ending? Because this is a very controversial thing.
But I don't think that applies specifically to this movie. That's the ending of this movie is the ending of the book.
But I still think that there are people who felt like, because there are a bunch of people who watched this movie and didn't read the book or listen to the fucking radio show or
that
any
like
of
everything
stuff.
ends happy,
Not
or
that it ends
how
happy.
how it ends.
How it ends.
Yeah, that was a little bit disappointing. I think I said that was fucking lame, like audibly.
Yeah.
It makes sense
They set
It
it up.
does.
They've set it up very lightly toward the beginning when.
with Morgan Freeman.
Well, no, I was gonna say when Dakota Fanning's character has a splinter, and she does the whole thing where she's like, "Oh, don't worry, like eventually my body will push it out, like, and I'll be okay." And she's basically saying like that's what's gonna end up happening is like we're like basically our bodies are gonna be what defeats the virus or whatever. And Tom Cruise in that scene like coughs completely randomly, and then turns and starts talking to her. And I was like, oh, they're trying to lay the groundwork for it being a bacteria or whatever that kills.
Yeah.
They never touch it again after that.
Yeah, and so I'm not saying that as a defense for that ending. I'm just saying that they tried, and I think that's a sign that maybe they should have gone in a different direction from what the book ending is for a movie that is this spectacular.
Well, I didn't catch that, but that's cool that they laid that groundwork, and they could have done more with all the Vine shit. And it seemed like maybe we had a deleted scene somewhere that it went more into that because we don't really understand what that even is.
I think they very heavily imply that it's human blood.
Right. But why? Why is it in veins?
They're
If
like,
maybe that's
terraforming the planet. I
Yeah,
think.
it's like
okay.
scorched earth in order to bend the planet.
and that's
into
part
their
of what kills them.
Well,
Is because that gets affected by it. It's like their blood infected or something. I don't. It's weird. Right. It's not.
well, so the reason they're red is because in the original novel, the aliens are from Mars, and so the explanation for why the vines are red is that because Mars is red. So the idea is that Mars is red because it's covered in these blood vines or whatever. That's the original book has that concept. This, because they're not from Mars or whatever, it's a little bit more ambiguous. That whole thing does end up being a little bit more confusing. Visually, it's very cool. It's very creepy.
Right.
And I like the idea that they're like, don't they use that word fertilizing or something? But they're basically fertilizing the planet with our blood, which is pretty
Disgusting.
gruesome and pretty fucked up. There's some pretty horrifying stuff with the tripods in general. I think as a concept, they were pulled off pretty remarkably in this movie. They're pretty scary, and the sound design reminds me also of Godzilla, the new Godzilla roar. The like just really deep, like in your bones, bassy tones that they make. It's
brown
just-
note level notes.
Yeah, exactly. Like you shit your pants hearing it. Yeah. I mean, just everything about them, I think, was pulled off super well. The disintegration stuff, and if you see the behind the scenes of how they did that, like,
Yeah, that scene in the beginning where he's running away and they first start just like zapping people, and he's just covered in that. He gets back to his house and sits down, and they're like,
the kids are like, "What's on you?" And he's just like, not answering. That's
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
It's dead people.
It's a very incredible scene.
right. And there's a lot of those in this movie.
The dead people floating down the river.
I thought Dakota Fanning was awful. I was like, okay, you're known for being a really good child actor, now turned regular actress, right? Spielberg just does not utilize her for what she's capable of. She just yells for 2 hours.
She is one of the most common. I mean, the kids in general, I think, are some of the biggest complaints that I tend to hear about this movie. And I completely agree. I mean, the only defense I would give is that she does feel like a real little kid. Like, she's very genuine, and I wouldn't say that her performance is bad. I would say it's exactly what you said. Spielberg doesn't give her anything interesting to do besides be an annoying little kid, which, I mean, helps kind of put you on edge because you're constantly... And I love that Tom Cruise does basically tell her to shut the fuck up, like, constantly throughout the movie. So, I mean, it's not like they're oblivious to the fact that she's annoying as shit.
Yeah.
And it's convincing that, like, she would be terrified. I just don't necessarily want to see that for 2 hours in a movie.
Yeah, it treats the movie like a giant escort mission in a game.
Yeah, exactly. And you wish that they would, instead of ditching Justin Chatwin's character, that they somehow found a way to ditch both those characters. And just because Tom Cruise, again, I felt was great in this movie. He's sympathetic. I felt like he actually seemed shocked by what was going on. He seemed scared. I think that whole thing with the family is I mean, you see it a lot. It's a common thing of like, oh, shit goes down when the dad has to take care of the kids or whatever. Like, it's the end of the world. But yeah, I enjoyed it. And there's some pretty, like I said, horrifying stuff in here. The basement stuff, I think, is really creepy, even if it does slow down the movie just a little bit. It adds a little bit of extra
very
tension.
little, though.
Yeah, very, very little.
I mean, it is still technically a small pacing issue, but I mean, it's very minor and it doesn't take you out.
No. I mean, movies like that get away with doing that now. I mean, look at Mad Max. I mean, that movie's nonstop. You know what I mean? And it can be exhausting.
Yeah. And I did want to mention briefly that it's pretty cool to watch the scene when he comes out of the house and the plane crash has happened. One, because knowing the behind the scenes of that, they got an actual plane and chopped it up for that movie, which is insane. And also, if you're like us and you've been to Universal's studio tour here in LA, you get to see
That scene.
Like, you get to drive through it, which I've done a dozen times since having first seen this movie.
Yeah.
And so it was cool to see it again and really feel the power of that scene, like how well done some of that big spectacle is. There's some, again, I keep saying it's scary, but yeah.
The last thing that I want to mention, and I don't want to mention it about yours as well, that I forgot to touch on, and I think we should, is that the scores for both of these movies are great.
I mean, John Williams.
Right, but even, I mean, you know, I knew it was John Williams.
But it
It's
doesn't feel like a typical John
exactly.
Williams score.
Yeah.
I don't ever get hints of Jurassic Park or hints of Harry Potter or hints of Star Wars.
Yeah.
It's very much its own thing. And I was, good for you, dude. You still got some surprises left in you.
So-
And same with Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Felt very much like it could have been a scene from Devs.
Yeah.
Or the score from Devs. It had that and then very ethereal.
I mean, even Annihilation has that same thing.
Right.
So, are you glad that you watched it?
Oh, yeah. And I wish I would have done it sooner.
Yeah, I was
For
gonna say-
some reason in my head, I thought it was 3 hours.
It was definitely not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like kept you from it for so long, aside from the fact that you thought the runtime was longer than it was?
That's what I was going to say. I feel like it surprised me when you said you hadn't seen this movie.
Well, part of it was that I thought the runtime was very long, and so it takes a lot for me to sit down and watch a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
And then also, at one point, I started it and fell asleep almost immediately. And I don't know if it was because I was tired or if I was bored. But in my head, it was because I was bored. And so I never went back and watched it.
I don't see how you could have been bored.
The
This-
opening
this
of that
movie
movie
takes
was great.
off.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
really quick.
So I must have been tired.
Yeah.
So
They get to the alien stuff like
almost immediately.
Yeah.
Right. And then it just goes. Yeah. So, I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Out of 5 red vines, red blood vines,
It's not a perfect movie.
definitely not.
So I would say 4. I think a solid 4 is right where it sits. I think on Rotten it sits at like a 75.
Yeah.
I do think that's a little bit low.
Yeah.
So I would say a 4, about 80%. I mean, it's good. And Tom Cruise acts in this movie, which
Yeah.
we
Yes.
don't always see him do. And I think it's really cool that Spielberg was able to bring that out to him. I think that's a testament to the actor and the director. And I'm very happy that it's a part of the sci-fi lexicon. I think that it should be a shameful miss if you're a sci-fi fan.
Well, that was going to be my question, is because War of the Worlds, unlike the other two things that we've talked about, is a property that's already been done before,
Right.
and has been done since. Fox just did a War of the Worlds TV show.
Someone
I saw it
did,
when I was
yeah.
searching for this. Yeah, so I mean, it's been done, and most famously with Orson Welles.
Yeah.
on radio. So that was my question: is do you feel like this deserves to exist in basically the lineage of War of the Worlds? It sounds like it does to you. Yeah,
Yeah.
And I agree.
Like,
I
it's a
mean,
good adaptation.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Like I said, I had a good time revisiting it. It's been a long time since I'd seen it. Probably since like 2010, 2011.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was hyped for it when it came out as a kid. I remember. Yeah.
Same.
All
So,
right.
let's get into the movie of the hour.
Ooh, actually, guys, I have to go. I got some plans.
So Anthony watched The Fifth Element, This is one of John's least favorites. I wouldn't say it's like my favorite movie by any means, but I do like and enjoy this movie.
I was concerned going into this because I had not seen Elements 1 through 4. So I felt like I was going to be completely fucking lost, which I still was. But yeah, I guess we can get into it, and I can tell you guys whether I enjoyed this movie or not.
Yeah, okay, brief plot synopsis.
Synopsis.
Synopsis. It's about a guy who's a dirtbag and gets enlisted. He's a taxi driver, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gets
So
enlisted.
Bruce Willis plays a taxi driver who gets roped into some big, like, ages-old conflict surrounding the 5 elements, 4 of which are like these stones, one of which is, I guess, a person, and they're supposed to defeat some giant evil, and he gets roped into helping out Lilu, the supposed 5th element, I guess, played by Mila Jovovich. So, favorite
Yes.
of yours, I believe?
It is.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, she still is attractive.
Cool. So,
She makes shit movies.
first I'll go into why it took me so long to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Let's hear that.
That was one of my questions. Is
Yeah.
going to be, why do you think it took you so long to watch?
Genuinely, the aesthetic and the vibe of this movie kind of turned me off just from the little bits I had seen, I think, on TV. And I think that's what it was. It's just like, one, I've said before, I'm not a huge Bruce Willis fan. I don't go out of my way to, like, I love Die Hard. Die Hard's great. I'm going to be talking a little bit about some other Bruce Willis stuff in my watch list, but I enjoy him in a couple of things that are genuinely really good movies, but for the most part, I don't go out of my way to watch something that he's in. And the same with Mila Jovovich. My first exposure to her was the Resident Evil movies, which I think are the hottest of garbage. And I know you maybe don't feel the same way that I do, but I've never had.
I
Just
know,
the
I know they're
garbage.
bad. I
think
just
they're
like watching
garbage
them.
that I enjoy.
Well, and
Yeah.
literally the only reason that I was halfway interested in watching this movie was because of Gary Oldman. Because
He's
I
great.
Knew, because I knew he played like a crazy ass character. So I mostly was just like, I don't think it's my vibe. Like, I really don't think I'm going to enjoy it. So I just always was like, whatever, I'll get around. I've had people who, like, especially, I'm just a lot of women really like the 5th element. Like, I have a lot of women coming
really?
to me and saying, which I mean, I feel like makes sense
Yeah.
with a character like Lilu or whatever. But
The aesthetic is kind of a combination of Blade Runner meets like Idiocracy.
well, I would say that this movie is definitely like the flip side of the Blade Runner coin. I would say that it takes a lot of inspiration from Blade Runner, but does the opposite, where it makes like a really bright, colorful, crazy world. So, do you want me to stop bullshitting and get to whether I liked the movie or not?
Yes.
Or do you have any other questions to keep everybody in suspense?
Yeah, I want to know what you liked and disliked. I want to know it all.
So, my final verdict as of now is I respect the shit out of this movie. I respect the shit out of it. I can't say I particularly loved it,
Right.
but I've been thinking about it a whole hell of a lot. And I do think that for a pretty mixed bag, it again does some things that are remarkable for the time. It has some really cool ideas, and I definitely think that if I rewatched it, I would probably enjoy it a lot more knowing what it is now. Like, I think that's a movie that I think is worth checking out a second time, unless you just absolutely were disgusted by everything that was in the movie, which wasn't the case for me. I audibly laughed at some points. I was impressed by some of the stuff. I admittedly was pretty lost during a lot of it, though, because I do feel like this movie is kind of a hodgepodge of everything that Luc Besson wanted to put in from his childhood. Because, I mean, for anybody who doesn't know the backstory of The 5th Element, Luc Besson has basically been wanting to make this movie since he was a child. He had written all of the backstory and all of this crazy stuff and had to chop down like 500 pages or something crazy to...
Oh my God.
He had like an insane encyclopedia of information, had to chop it down. He was also heavily inspired by the Valerian comics. Or Valerian or
Which
whatever.
he ended up making.
Which he ended up making, which people, I guess, didn't like. I'd be interested to check that out now, having seen The 5th Element.
It basically
but-
rips off the 5th element.
Yeah. So I would say, I mean, I guess we can break it down into things that I did like about the movie and things that I didn't like about the movie, and that might help kind of better give you guys a sense of me having a verdict, because I know my answer is very much probably not what you were hoping for, which is it fucking sucks, or oh my God, it's the best movie ever.
I
didn't
figured
think-
you would firmly lay up in the center.
Yeah, which is where I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, you guys know me. You guys, I guess I'm not surprising anybody. Things I liked. The movie looks incredible. It's weird looking, and it's tasteless in the way that it looks in a lot of respects, but it does its own thing, which I, again, 100% respect. I can't say that it says, like, every bit of it drips coolness like Blade Runner does. There's something like Blade Runner, you're just like, every fucking piece of that is cool. In this, you're like... I guess maybe somebody in the future would wear something like that or do something like that. But I mean, for what was this, 97? that this came out.
Around there.
Yeah, it's way better looking than like the Phantom Menace, which is a fucking Star Wars movie. Like this movie looks amazing. The mixture of practical effects with early CG that, for the most part, I mean, there are parts of this movie that you can definitely tell are some out of date visual stuff going on, some out of date CGI, but overall, the prosthetic creature effects and everything, the puppets look amazing. The sets are very impressive. The costuming is crazy and really, really stands out in terms of being iconic. I mean,
Especially
I knew
Chris Tucker's.
Well, yeah, I mean, and then Lilu, like with the bandage type like outfit on, I've seen that a million times, and then her suspenders, and I liked the use of color, like with Bruce Willis's character being in the orange shirt for a lot of the movie and matching her orange and her orange hair. I liked how bright and loud everything was. Even if that's not my aesthetic, like it's not what I would like a future world to look like or whatever. So I liked all that. I enjoyed that Bruce Willis was actually trying. He seemed to actually have remotely some interest in the material and was actually playing a character, which again is different for me. I don't tend to see him do that very often. Mila Jovovich, probably the best I've ever seen her in anything. I think this is probably her best performance.
Chicken, good.
Yeah, I mean, I totally bought. It felt a lot like Lord of the Rings in terms of like the actor who, or like Game of Thrones, where they're like, they learn these languages and stuff. And I guess she wrote letters to Luc Besson in the divine language. Like they corresponded back and forth to practice, and they invented that language all by themselves. But her acting like somebody who just basically came into existence was convincing. I enjoyed her. Oldman, I don't think was in the movie enough, and I was kind of confused as to why he existed except to be goofy. The villain plot I felt was pretty weak. It's literally a giant ball of like shit out in space, and there's just people in space going like, "Okay, guys, it's getting closer," and then they're like bleeding out of their heads or whatever. But then there's Gary Oldman's character, who I guess is working for the evil thing. But I wanted him to just be the main focus. Like I wanted him to be the main bad guy, and I thought that his like car salesman style, like weird delivery was so different that you forget it's him. And that's, I mean, that's him in almost every role he's in. But yeah, I mean, across the board, performances were pretty great. I mean, I guess I have to get around to Chris Tucker, which is everybody's like make or break moment for this movie, I feel like.
I think he's hilarious.
I think he's awful.
Yeah, see, I feel like people vacillate wildly between he is fucking hilarious and they want to quote every line, or he kills the movie.
The stuff when he's the announcer and he's supposed to be over the top, I think works really well. Toward the end, go on, man, when you can't figure out how to fucking put dirt on an element or whatever,
yeah.
That's when I think the character is not fun to be around.
Yeah, so my problem with this character is only that he overstays his welcome. I would have loved for him to be a kooky character that exists in that world that shows up specifically for that set piece of them going to the resort or whatever and like having to sneak in and do that. Have him be that, and because I liked it, and his inspiration was he wanted to be Prince and Michael Jackson like put together, which
I can see that.
Yeah, and I mean, he is an actor who has that kind of like over the top personality, and he really pushes it up to 12 in this movie. It's insane. Bugs the shit out of me at first, but I was like oddly intrigued by it. I was really like wrapped into whatever the hell he was doing. But as it went on, it became basically Dakota Fanning in War of the Worlds, where it was just a character screaming constantly. And the fact that he shows up and then just stays in the rest of the movie, it's distracting from what's going on. It made me take everything in the climax a little bit less seriously, which, yeah. I mean, this movie never wants you to really take anything super seriously. It's very tongue-in-cheek, which I appreciated, and I knew from the beginning that was probably what I was in for. I know John is just bursting at the seams right
Itching.
now.
I'm just waiting.
I still got more questions for him.
Yeah, so, I mean, if you want to...
I just want to know what you dislike, I guess.
So, yeah, I dislike that the movie has too much going on.
Okay. That's fair.
I think that it really tries to throw in every single idea that, like I said, that Luc Besson might have had over the years that he was able to fit in with just random shit. And while those may make memorable moments, they don't all necessarily coalesce into something that makes sense and is paced well. I feel like this movie has quite a big pacing issue. Not that the action ever stops, but half the time it's just there's too much going on, and it bogs you down in like, okay, so where are they now and what are they doing and what's the convoluted scheme and who's this character, when really at the end of the day it's like I should just be concerned about how they're going to get the 4 elements and save the world or whatever. And it goes on all these little, it reminded me of basically a whole movie of the casino planet thing from The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
It was basically an entire movie of that, which in The Last Jedi I hated it. In this, because it was doing that as the whole movie, I was like, okay, I can get behind this. And I guess that's what I'll say. What I'll say overall is like I can get behind this movie. But it's definitely not like gonna make any lists for me. Things I disliked, some of the pacing, some of the characters are a little bit. No, I won't say anybody's too over the top. I mean, that's what the movie's trying to do. But yeah, I would say Chris Tucker's character, trim him down a little bit, make the plot less convoluted. I'm gonna let John take over with things he didn't like because he might bring up some points that I'm not remembering now.
Burst out of that seat, dude.
Yeah, and I feel like I haven't been really tearing it apart like you had hoped. So I'll allow you to do that.
So you rewatched it, right?
I rewatched it.
Okay.
I rewatched it last night.
Did you try to go in with the lens that you don't hate it?
Yes. Yeah, I tried to sit down and say, okay, I'm gonna give this movie a real chance. It's been about 6 or 7 years since I've seen it, and I fucking still hate it. It's the antithesis of the things that I want to see in cinema, period. It's very poorly shot and very poorly edited.
Yes, 100%. The editing is awful in this movie. I will say that, but
I did not like the style of the set pieces or anything like that. I felt like while they do a decent blending for 1997 time of practical and CG, that's fine. I can get over that. But I didn't like the colors or the style that it shot in. I just felt like it wasn't what I wanted it to be, which that's not a fault of the movie. And like I said, and I understand that I'm wrong, but
not necessarily. I think that I don't think you should say that. What I will say is that maybe you tend to prefer a more cohesive version of the future, because this is not cohesive at all, and it does feel like a huge melting pot of different ideas. And that's the idea he was going for. Is he was like, obviously it would be the future would be a huge melting pot of different cultures and stuff like that. But I could see how maybe you would want something that has more of a singular vision. I mean, especially after we talked about Alex Garland, like you want something that has a more unified vision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, it's the worst parts of Doctor Who and the worst parts of Star Wars smashed up to make a movie.
I think that's a really great comparison. Doctor Who is a perfect comparison for a lot of this, actually. Like the aliens in the beginning, hardcore gave me Doctor Who villain vibes. Yeah.
I'm not as big a fan of Gary Oldman's performance as everybody else is. I don't think it's awful. It's just very Looney Tunes. His entire plot is very Looney Tunes. The whole him coming in to disarm the bomb and then have another bomb be there.
Oh, yeah, I hated him choking on the cherry or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that seemed like a huge waste of time, but
I absolutely hated Bruce Willis's character. Fucking, he's just a dirtbag. Like, I mean, from the moment that he attempts to hand her over to the police to the moment where he fucking tries to kiss her while she's asleep.
Okay, yeah,
I mean,
so he does
fucking awful.
He is pretty okay. So yeah, I will say that because I mean I said that I appreciated that he was trying to act the part, but yeah, I agree. I mean I didn't like his character. I felt like he was pretty undercooked.
Yes,
because at the end you're supposed to be convinced that he is in love with somebody that is 20 years his junior, and be convinced of that in this crazy ass plot. He's felt that from literally the moment he saw her. Which I mean they try to put it in your head like she's perfect, she's perfect, she's perfect. But I don't want to see that story. You see it in every Disney movie or whatever. It's like I don't need to see a character instantly fall in love with the perfect woman. And I knew that's what the setup was going to be, because the first conversation he has in the movie with a friend or his boss or whatever is like, oh, I'll find the perfect girl. She's somewhere out there. She'll fall out of the sky or whatever, whatever. And then she literally does. But so I didn't buy his speech at the end where he professed his love. To me, it felt like he was kind of looking at the camera going does anybody actually believe this? So pretty undercooked in that respect.
Yeah. I will say that the one thing that I didn't appreciate about this movie before, and now looking at it from a 2020 lens, I did appreciate, is Mila Jovovich's character of Lilu. I feel like that's the best part about this movie by a fucking mile.
I don't think this movie would be anywhere near as successful without her.
Yeah. And at first I was like, I'm starting to remember why I didn't like her character, because the whole basically they just make a point of making her naked all the time. Mm-hmm. But
that's all of the movie she's in.
But as they kind of press on and they kind of show how badass this character is and how strong this character is, I was like, I could get behind this if it was literally fucking anything else. The worst part of the movie for me, I've already mentioned it, is Chris Tucker. It's fucking grating. From the moment he's on screen, that's the point. So I don't think I've ever mentioned on this show that I have a vast disdain for John Leguizamo, and this is a John Leguizamo type character.
Oh hell yeah, yeah!
Those pesty type characters just fucking irritate. They do what they're supposed to do, and they get on my nerves. And if something gets on my nerves when I'm watching a movie, the likelihood is that it's going to turn me off. That I can't just be like, oh, that's a character and separate it. I'm just like, nope, I fucking hate this. And I feel like Chris Tucker is so much better in other movies. Like, I loved him in Rush Hour. I fucking hated him in this.
Yeah. The one bit that he does that I do think is genuinely really good is when he keeps trying to get Bruce Willis to, like, say something for his radio show. And he's, like, trying to get some excitement out of him. And he's like, and it turns to Bruce Willis and he's just like, thrilled or whatever he said.
Yeah.
You know, like, just, I thought that was funny. I
Like,
laughed
wow.
out loud. Yeah.
The phone calls with his mom were also pretty funny.
Yeah.
Where she would just call and just berate him, and then like when the president calls at the end, and she's like, it doesn't even sound like him. That shit was hella funny.
I think they were definitely trying to go for, like, they were trying to recapture the John McClane type, like, everyman character that Bruce Willis tends to be good at playing, the everyman action hero or whatever. But because Mila Jovovich's character was so independent and headstrong and awesome, that was another reason why I didn't buy the ending quite as much, that she would fall in love with Bruce Willis's character, because to me, I was like, didn't really do much for you, but... I mean, I guess he figured out the elements, which was kind of goofy. I did like when they were trying to, like, they lit the match and they had to be like, nobody breathe. And they had to try to put the fire on. I was like, that's so dorky, but I'm used to it at this point in the movie.
So let's get to the big questions, I guess. Would you watch it again? I think you kind of already answered that.
I would, but I'm not champing at the bit to do so.
All right. Do you think that it deserves to be part of a shameful miss as in the sci-fi lexicon?
Well, so do I think that it deserves to be a shameful miss? Yes, I think it deserves to be seen, which is a separate question from whether I believe it deserves to be part of, like, needs to be part of the general, like, trajectory of sci-fi. Not necessarily.
Do you think it's a sci-fi staple?
I think it's an interesting detour. I don't know if it's that's what I would say. That's where I say I firmly, for now, I guess not firmly. This is where I'm kind of like loosey-goosey sitting. It's a good detour, but I still think that I would not be like, it hasn't radically enriched my enjoyment of sci-fi as a whole, or really, like, blown my mind in any way, except that the effects were impressive, and it's cool that somebody was able to really throw his the other thing, that throw his vision at the screen, which reminds me of something like a Jupiter Ascending, like when the Wachowskis have tried to do any of their weird sci-fi shit since The Matrix. It feels like somebody who did The Matrix, you know, it feels like he's trying to do, like, that amalgamation of influences like The Matrix, but just didn't pull it off as well, obviously. But, I mean, I know a lot of people are huge fans, so I am, again, not dead set either way. I'm in the middle, like you guys guessed I would be. But I think I lean more toward, like, I enjoy it. You know, it's enjoyable enough, and I like parts of it, and there are a lot of really quotable things and a lot of imagery that stands out, so...
Let's get the big score then. Out of 5 elements.
I was gonna say out of 5 military people in the freezer.
I'm saying 5 elements because it fits with the movie.
Out of the 5 elements, I'm gonna give this one a 3, leaning toward 3.5 on a rewatch maybe, but 3 for now.
I think that's fair.
Yeah, I generally understand, like, that I would have given it a lower score, but that I'm also, in the eyes of most people, wrong, because it is a generally beloved movie. It's not for me. It's the antithesis of basically everything that I want from a movie.
You see, the problem that I have is you saying that you're at all in the wrong for having that opinion, because the thing that puts me in the middle is because I completely understand why people would absolutely go apeshit about this movie, and I completely understand why people would hate it. I'm not. I didn't watch it and go like, "What? This is amazing! How could anybody dislike this?" And I didn't watch it going, "What? This is awful! How could anybody like this movie?" So I think it's a really interesting case for sci-fi. I think it was a neat little experiment. But yeah, I think 3 is a good little average score for it, and it might be fun to watch with other people. I think, like, other people who are maybe really into The Fifth Element, I think would make it a more enjoyable watch in the future.
I agree. It's not. I don't think it's a bad movie. I don't think it's a great movie. I think it is somewhere in that middle ground.
I'm glad I watched it because I could finally have that off my chest. And I
Yeah.
do feel like that's something where, as a sci-fi fan, you should have seen The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not like something like Ex Machina where it's like, oh, well, you really should have seen that if you're a fan of Alex Garland. This is like, if you like sci-fi, you should have seen this movie. So I'm really happy to have been able to get these on tape.
All right. Well, I'm glad that we all got to go through that. That adds 3 more movies to our sci-fi redemption multi-passes. I'm going to do my best to reference The Fifth Element every episode from here on out. I'm just kidding, dude. I'm not like in love with that movie. I just think it's a fun movie.
Do you hate me
So many reasons. We don't have that much time.
Damn.
Damn. All right. So if you guys have differing opinions or the same opinions, then let us know. Hit us up on any of our socials. Instagram is going to be your best bet to get in direct contact with us. We have a ton of conversations on there. Anthony's basically always on it, and it's a lot of fun. So hit us up if you guys want to discuss these movies further. That'll wrap it up for the main discussion, though, and we'll move on to our wiggity watch list.
Patrick, what is it? Where are you going?
I've got to return some videotape.
There are a couple things that I wanted to mention, but I will save them for the extended watch list, and I will just give you guys that I have been diving into the second season of the Jordan Peele ran Twilight Zone. I am 4 episodes in, and so far, I think it's an improvement vastly over the first season. We talked about how the first season was hit and miss with some of these episodes, and some of the episodes were in your face with their message to the point of parody. This isn't like that. There's still messages, not as political, but it felt more like a modern Twilight Zone, maybe a little less intense Black Mirror in some of the episodes.
That's really awesome to hear. I watched the first episode, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was creepy and had an interesting little twist, and the performances were good.
Right. I think that there's kind of the subtext of, obviously, the fantastical element to it, but also, like, how does that relate to our world now with
And, like, incel culture and stuff like
learning,
that.
learning about people over the internet. So you don't really know somebody, but you think you do.
Yeah.
Even like catfishing, I guess, essentially.
Yeah.
It's kind of a commentary on that. And I feel like every episode loosely has similar messages.
Yeah, and that's what I liked about that one, is that it could very easily have been a Black Mirror episode, but instead of doing the really technologically driven part of what that could be, it still goes for a fantastical twist, you know, which is definitely something that I enjoyed about that first episode. So I'll have to check out the rest of the season, because, yeah, that first season just left me really meh. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Left you wanting more.
But yeah, like I said, I'll save the rest for the extended watch list over on Instagram and shoot it over to you, JB.
So I watched all 3 of the movies that we talked about today over the course of last night and this morning. And after I watched War of the Worlds this morning, great way to wake up, just pop in nice, depressing War of the Worlds. I watched a recommendation from Mr. Anthony over here.
Hell yeah, bro. So excited about this.
The Vast of Night, which perfectly ties in with watching War of the Worlds, because it kind of has that, like, radio sci-fi story vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very good time. I loved the color palette. I loved the way that it was shot. I mean, obviously it kind of stole some things from other films. We talked about that on our bonus episode. But it was just a really good time, and I felt like the characters were kind of funky and kind of had that, like, 50s type of vibe to them. And I felt like for being such a very, very, very low budget film, it was shot well, it was edited well, and it had really good special effects for being something that didn't have a huge studio backing behind it.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that for this movie being as remarkably low budget as it was, it does not look it at all, and does some really cool, creative, long takes, and some long, charming conversations with the characters that really build them up. And the story parts, where it's just characters telling stories to the camera, basically.
Yeah.
That's terrifying stuff.
The old woman
creeps the shit out of me.
Oh.
Yeah.
I got choked up a little bit, just like her talking about, like, Jace basically having to live her life alone because things kept happening to the people she cared about.
Yeah.
Oof.
Aliens are scary, bro.
Oof.
But yeah, I'm super glad that you checked that out, because, and that's one that, tying in with your recommendation, opens like a Twilight Zone episode. They have like a little intro to their, like, Twilight Zone type show or whatever.
It keeps popping up, and I'm
highly
interested.
recommend.
I just haven't got around to it.
I would say it's definitely up your alley.
I don't want anything up my alley. All right, what about you, Anthony?
Well, continuing on the spooky aliens train, my theme this week is actually the trilogy. I wanted to complete the trilogy. So I watched The Fifth Element. I decided I would also watch The Fourth Kind and The Sixth Sense.
Oh my God.
So I checked out The Fourth Kind, which I had not seen ever. Also,
With
a Mila
Mila
Jovovich movie.
That movie does a really good job of making you think that it's real.
That's what I was going to say, is that I had always seen horrible reviews for that movie. And while it does have a lot of problems, I will say, having some distance from it, you know, from when it came out and when it was all hyped because people were just afraid of owls after that or whatever. The premise, especially going in knowing, like, okay, it's not real, but they're making you believe it is. It's a super cool idea.
I thought it was.
I think the concept is really interesting. The thing that pissed people off is that it hits too close to home, because I guess there really are disappearances in that town in Alaska, and the movie is trying to sensationalize it or whatever, but it doesn't use real names or real people. And I thought the idea of showing like documentary supposed real footage next to the reenactments was a really spooky, cool concept because it made things feel more real in the fictitious scenes. And it was tricking my brain just by the way it was shot on, like camcorder or whatever with timestamps. It was tricking my brain. And there's some pretty harrowing stuff that happens in some of those hypnotism scenes. The plot as a whole gets pretty muddy and they start mixing up like with some Sumerian stuff. And then it's like, is it God, is it angels? But there's some pretty freaky shit in that movie. I was doing the same thing. I was laying down watching the movie, and when it got to some of the parts where like the alien voice is coming through and it's saying like, I am God or whatever, like I was sitting up cross-legged. And Mila Jovovich was great in the movie. I think her performance is probably the main highlight of that movie. I thought the acting across the board was good. I just think it was a little bit of a messy movie.
Yeah,
I remember done a little bit.
There were some parts that freaked me out when I saw it in theaters. But
the owl was scary. There's one shot where it pans around the entire owl, and it does that thing that owls can do in real life, where it turns its head all the way around. But they do it so it follows the camera. They must have had a trained owl. It's creepy as shit. And the whole idea of like it's an owl, and then they get hypnotized and they realize like it was never an owl. Like my memories are false. It reminded me of the story that I had written.
Yeah,
a lot of it did actually. And then I watched a movie that I had seen before. But I was interested to rewatch it, partially because of this theme I had decided on, but also because Bruce Willis. So I felt like, hey, kind of weird that we had Mila on one end with The Fourth Kind. We had Bruce on the other end with The Sixth Sense. And they have a meet in the middle with The Fifth Element.
You said it's like a Fifth Element movie centipede.
Yes, the weirdest movie the weirdest movie trilogy you'll ever watch. But I hadn't seen The Sixth Sense since I was a kid, but I had, everybody knows the twist of that movie. If you don't, I guess I won't spoil it, but everybody knows what the big deal about that movie is. I went back to rewatch it to just enjoy the filmmaking because I recently rewatched Signs and thought that movie was really well made. And holy shit, The Sixth Sense is a gorgeously put together movie.
It's pretty scary too, isn't it?
And it's freaky. That's another reason I want to watch it is because some of those scenes when he finally does start seeing dead people scared the shit out of me when I was a kid. I could not watch parts of that movie for that reason.
Yeah, when he's at that birthday party, right? Isn't that shit hella scary? And then isn't he in a tent?
He's in his little red tent, and I think Misha Barton, weirdly before she got big, shows up and like vomits all over. And
fuck yeah, bro.
But I mean, that's another example of Bruce Willis putting in a really good actual acting performance. Haley Joel Osment, incredible actor, actor. It's insane. I mean, and my bae, Toni Collette, who plays the mother in that movie is incredible in basically anything that I've ever seen her in. So, as a Hereditary stan, had to check it out for that. But
and my bae, Donnie Wahlberg.
Wahlberg.
Yeah, weird double feature that I decided to put on, but really enjoyed both movies. I mean, Fourth Kind, if you're looking for a kind of iffy movie that's going to spook you, that one's good. If you're looking for a really well-made movie that you can really pick apart. And knowing the twist of that movie is almost more fun because then from the beginning you can trace every way that it works throughout the movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my watch list for this week. I have some other stuff that will also show up on the extended watch list that will come out to Instagram.
Cool. That's gonna wrap it up for our episode this week. That was a lengthy one. Thanks for sticking with us on that. We had a blast. Hope you guys did too. Next week, we are going to be doing our second Uncut Gem, this time a horror Uncut Gem, and watching one of John's recommendations for me and Anthony, which is Jacob's Ladder.
Are we pronouncing that right? Jacob's Ladder?
Oh my god, you guys are just trying to hurt me!
Yeah.
It's Jacob's Ladder, god damn it.
That's what I said. I'm not hearing a difference. So we'll be watching.
Emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Protagonist is Tim Robbins. Anyway, we're going to check that out next week, so please join us for that. Thank you, as always, for listening. I have been Tone.
I have been John.
And I've been Internet Darling and Big Wolf on Campus, Anthony.
See you next week.
Keep it creepy. You can find Porcelain Peak on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Wherever you listen, don't forget to rate, review, share, and subscribe so you never miss a spine-tingling episode. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and at porcelainpeak.com for additional content. Special thanks to Randy Greer for composing the Porcelain Peak intro music and to Anthony Silva for designing the Porcelain Peak logo. All episodes and additional content is hosted, written, produced, designed, and edited by the Porcelain Peak team consisting of Anthony Perez, John Brasher, and Anthony Silva.
This has been here words for Weirdos production.